Hi, this is Dr. Tanner Melnick, physical therapist and running specialist here at Movement Rehab and Performance. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my metabolic fitness test experience and hopefully give you some insight into what it's like if you're thinking about completing a test yourself. Prior to completing my test, I'd never completed a mass exertional test before. I had seen a couple people go through it, through a test themselves, and I certainly have experience, pushing myself physically during my running training and whatnot. But I was still a little bit unsure of what it was going to be like to actually complete a test myself and how hard it was going to be. Heading into the test, I had a little bit of anxiety about wearing the gas exchange mask on my face. I was certainly concerned about it affecting my breathing and just feeling comfortable overall. The other major concern I had was simply being comfortable running on a treadmill. I typically don't run on a treadmill. I do all my running outside exclusively, bad weather, good weather, whatever it may be. And in the past year prior to completing the test, I had maybe run on the treadmill like one time. So it's definitely not something that I felt super great about. So I was concerned that me being unfamiliar with treadmill running was going to slightly decrease my performance on the test itself. But even with the previous concerns that I mentioned, I was definitely excited to complete the test and look at the data and receive my accurate heart rate zones and information on my fuel usage. So I was more than excited to get into the test and see how it all went. Once it was time to actually complete the test, I got fitted for the mask and I found it wasn't too bad. It definitely, it definitely is tight. It definitely takes a little bit to get used to, but certainly when I was actually, running and completing the test itself, I found that I was able to breathe just fine, especially through the nose. The mouth felt a little bit, tight, I guess, on the cheeks, but beyond that, it was totally fine. And it was important that it was tight because then it didn't feel like it was bouncing. I didn't feel like, there was something on the front of my face that was really annoying in any way. It felt, very tight and in one piece with kind of how my head would normally feel when I'm running as well. The test itself is pretty straightforward. So you start running at a slow speed and then every minute you go up at set intervals and you increase until you reach max effort and you can no longer sustain that running intensity. For the concerns that I had about the running on the treadmill itself, I found that it was not bad. I certainly wouldn't say I was comfortable by any stretch, but it didn't feel like it was really affecting my performance in some of the ways that I thought it might, heading into the test. I found that the test, particularly towards the end, was at an intensity that if I was, at any way concerned about any of the other, the face mask or the treadmill running, it was certainly so low level that I didn't even realize it because I was just so focused on, pushing through the test, especially at those last little bit at the end where the effort is really, really demanding. And so it really wasn't an issue at all. As far as the intensity itself goes of the test, it definitely was hard. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's certainly hard, and that's kind of the idea, is if you're trying to get the best results, then you need to be pushing yourself, and in order to push yourself, it's going to feel hard, kind of regardless of what fitness level you're at. It's going to be hard whether you're, a novice to running, whether you're the best runner in the world. Like, it's always going to be hard. It's just relative to kind of what your exercise, history is like. Ultimately, though, I was in control of the test, so whenever I felt like I couldn't push myself any harder, then at that very second, I'm in control to stop the test, which I think having that knowledge that I'm in control of the test and, it's not someone else trying to push you, any further than you feel like you can go yourself, was kind of empowering because I knew that I can push myself right up to the limit, but then as soon as I got there, I was done. And I'd say, overall, it was really the last maybe minute 30 of the test, that was the only part that felt really hard intensity. Obviously in the beginning of the test when you're just very, barely going anywhere, it actually feels quite easy. I mean, it was almost like to the point where I felt like I just needed to walk instead of run initially, and it's a very casual run, and then you slowly build up to the point where you start to get closer and closer to your limit, and then obviously the test is over whenever you reach that point. So that was quite nice. Knowing that I was in control of stopping the test gave me the self-assurance to be comfortable pushing myself to my limit, so that I think that ultimately you get the truest sense of kind of where your actual limit is, because without that knowledge that I was in control of the test, I would have felt like I kind of would have maybe sold myself a little bit short, knowing that I would be nervous about someone trying to push me to that point that I didn't feel comfortable going. Just like anything else, the first time you do something, there's always going to be some unknowns, no matter how much you are able to prepare. But I hope that if you are considering completing a fitness test, that this video has provided some insight into what it's like to complete the test, from someone that has recently done so, and kind of give you some firsthand knowledge. When I look forward to completing another test in the future, I'll know that it will still be hard. Obviously, it doesn't get any easier. My fitness may improve, my ability may get better, my performance may get better, but ultimately the challenge level of the test is always going to remain challenging. But I think having the knowledge of completing the test will make it easier in some senses. If you would like to get more information on completing a fitness test, please click here. And if you'd like to schedule a test, then please click the link below. And as always, happy running.